The Outlaw Josey Wales was not just another Western, it was a cinematic powder keg that nearly blew up Hollywood from the inside out. Behind those sweeping landscapes and stoic glances lay a battlefield of egos, political controversies, and production chaos that would make the Civil War depicted on screen look like a playground scuffle. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on the production that changed Hollywood forever with 20 weird facts about the Outlaw Josey Wales. 20. The Eastwood Rule. The Directors Guild of America created a new rule specifically because of what happened on this film. It was not a coincidence. It was a direct response to Eastwood firing original director Philip Kaufman mid-production and taking over the director's chair himself. The controversy erupted so intensely that the DGA had to establish what became known as the Eastwood Rule, prohibiting actors or producers from firing the director and then taking over themselves. Kaufman, who had written the initial screenplay and spent 2 years in pre-production, was blindsided when Eastwood showed up with his own production team and essentially staged a Hollywood coup. Behind-the-scenes battle became so legendary that film schools still teach it as a case study in power dynamics. What audiences did not know as they watched Josey Wales seek revenge was that the real drama was happening behind the camera, creating a precedent that would shape Hollywood power structures for decades to come. 19. The Ku Klux Klan connection. The source material was not just written by an author with a controversial past. It was penned by Forrest Carter, who was later revealed to be Asa Earl Carter, a former Ku Klux Klan member, segregationist speechwriter for George Wallace, and participant in the brutal attack on Nat King Cole. The irony is not just uncomfortable, it is devastating. The novel that would become one of the most progressive westerns regarding Native American representation was written by a man with a history of racial hatred. Eastwood claimed he was unaware of Carter's identity when he optioned the book, but the revelation after the film's release created a storm of controversy. What makes this particularly twisted is that the film's message of reconciliation between cultures stood in stark opposition to its author's real-life ideology. The disconnect between source material and final product represents one of Hollywood's most bizarre ironies, a film about healing that emerged from words of hate. 18. The on-set injury that nearly killed a legend. Chief Dan George was not just acting when he played the aging Cherokee warrior Lone Waddy, he was surviving. During the filming of a scene where his character falls from his horse, the animal lost its footing and crashed directly on top of the 78-year-old actor. The production did not just pause. It collapsed into chaos as crew members rushed to pull the horse off the unconscious actor. Giorgio suffered broken ribs and severe bruising, but miraculously survived without permanent damage. What audiences did not know as they watched his gentle, humorous performance was that the elderly actor had nearly given his life for the art. The incident was not widely reported at the time, but it exemplified the dangerous conditions that characterized the production. Eastwood, known for his minimalist approach to stunts and safety measures, pushed for authenticity at every turn, sometimes at tremendous cost to his cast. The scene remains in the film, a haunting reminder of the price of cinematic realism. 17. The sexist replacement. Sondra Locke was not just replaced in the film, she was erased. Originally cast as the female lead, Laura Lee, Locke was unceremoniously dropped from the production after she and Eastwood began their off-screen relationship. The decision was not mutual. It was a calculated move by Eastwood to avoid accusations of favoritism and to prevent their personal relationship from overshadowing the film. Locke, who would later become Eastwood's frequent collaborator and romantic partner, was devastated by the rejection. The role went to Paula Truman, an actress nearly twice Locke's age, creating one of the most peculiar casting decisions in Western history. What audiences did not know as they watched the tender scenes between Josey and Laura Lee was that the original choice had been cast aside for reasons that had nothing to do with talent. The incident foreshadowed the complicated professional and personal relationship that would define both their careers, a relationship that would later end in one of Hollywood's most bitter legal battles. 16. The studio battle over the ending. The final cut was not just edited for pacing, it was a compromise after a brutal battle with Warner Brothers over the film's ending. Eastwood's original conclusion was significantly darker, with Josey Wales riding off alone after his companions are killed. The studio did not just object, they threatened to shelve the entire project unless Eastwood delivered a more hopeful resolution. The compromise created the ending we know today, with Josey finding a new family and community. What audiences did not know was that this bittersweet conclusion was actually a Hollywood concession, not Eastwood's original vision. The tension between artistic integrity and commercial viability reached such heights that Eastwood considered buying the film back from the studio and releasing it independently. The behind-the-scenes struggle over the ending represents one of the most significant artistic compromises of Eastwood's career, a battle between his cynical instincts and Hollywood's demand for optimism. 15. The weather disaster. The production was not just challenged by location shooting, it was nearly destroyed by nature's fury. While filming in Utah's Canyonlands, the cast and crew were trapped by a flash flood that washed away equipment, destroyed sets, and left them stranded for days. The incident was not just inconvenient, it was terrifying. Eastwood and several crew members had to be rescued by helicopter as waters rapidly rose around their filming location. What audiences did not know as they watched those majestic desert landscapes was that the production had literally fought against the elements to capture those shots. The disaster cost the production over $500,000, a massive sum for a film with a modest budget, and delayed filming for weeks. The struggle against nature became part of the film's mythology, with Eastwood later commenting that the real challenges of making the movie mirrored the survival themes depicted on screen. The production's resilience in the face of natural disaster became as legendary as the film itself. 14. The political time bomb. The film was not just released during America's bicentennial. It was a deliberate commentary on post-Vietnam disillusionment that struck a nerve with audiences. Eastwood was not just making a Western. He was crafting a metaphor for government distrust and the scars of war that resonated deeply with 1970s America. The protagonist, a man driven by revenge against government forces who killed his family, was not just a Civil War character. He was a reflection of a nation questioning authority after Vietnam and Watergate. What audiences did not fully appreciate was how Josey Wales tapped into the collective psyche of a country grappling with moral ambiguity. The film's success was not just due to Eastwood's star power. It was perfectly timed to capture the zeitgeist of an era when traditional heroes were being replaced by more complex, morally ambiguous figures. The political undercurrents running through the film transformed it from a standard revenge western into a statement about American identity in crisis. 13. The one-take tyranny. Eastwood was not just efficient on set, he was notoriously demanding with his minimal approach to filming. The director insisted on getting most scenes in 1 or 2 takes, a practice that was not just economical but deeply frustrating for many actors. Chief Dan George in particular struggled with Eastwood's rapid-fire approach, as the elderly actor needed more time to deliver his lines authentically. The tension was not just creative, it was palpable. What audiences did not know as they watched those seamless performances was that many actors felt rushed and underprepared. Eastwood's philosophy, if you need more than 2 takes, you've cast the wrong person, created an atmosphere of intense pressure that some actors found creatively stifling. This approach became one of Eastwood's trademarks as a director, but it began here, on the dusty sets of Josey Wales, where efficiency sometimes clashed with artistic exploration. The tension between Eastwood's methods and his actors' needs represents one of the most significant behind-the-scenes conflicts of the SEAL production. 12. The authentic weapons danger. The production did not just use realistic-looking prop guns. They insisted on authentic period weapons, creating a dangerous environment that pushed the boundaries of on-set safety. Eastwood was not just committed to visual authenticity, he demanded it in every detail, including the firearms used in the film. The problem was not just historical accuracy, it was actual danger. These were real, functional weapons from the Civil War era, some of which were still in working condition. What audiences did not know as they watched those intense gunfights was that the actors were handling weapons with centuries-old mechanisms that could misfire or malfunction at any moment. The armor on set worked overtime to ensure safety while maintaining authenticity, creating a constant tension between realism and risk. Several close calls occurred during filming, including one incident where a pistol unexpectedly discharged during rehearsal. The commitment to authenticity in every detail became one of the film's most impressive achievements and one of its most dangerous production elements. 11. The stunt coordinator's nightmare. The river crossing scene was not just challenging to film, it was nearly catastrophic. The sequence where Josey and his companions cross a raging river required multiple takes in genuinely dangerous conditions. The stunt coordinator did not just plan the scene, he repeatedly warned against filming it under the circumstances present. Eastwood, determined to capture the authentic struggle, pushed forward despite rising water levels and unpredictable currents. The result was not just cinematic gold, it was a series of close calls that could have ended in tragedy. What audiences did not know as they watched that harrowing river sequence was that several stunt performers were nearly swept away by the strong current, and one horse had to be rescued from drowning. The scene perfectly captures the perilous journey of the characters, but it does so at genuine risk to the cast and crew. This commitment to practical effects and real danger became a hallmark of Eastwood's filmmaking style, but it reached its most extreme expression in this particular sequence. 10. The political rewrites. Go ahead and like and subscribe because you are not going to believe how much the script changed from the original novel. The screenplay was not just adapted from Forrest Carter's book, it was politically transformed. Eastwood and screenwriter Philip Kaufman made substantial changes to the source material, softening the political elements and expanding the Native American characters' roles. The transformation was not just creative, it was ideological. They deliberately moved away from the novel's more controversial elements, creating a more nuanced portrayal of post-Civil War reconciliation. What audiences did not know was that these changes represented a conscious effort to distance the film from its source material's problematic politics. The character of Lone Waddy, in particular, was significantly expanded, giving Chief Dan George a much more prominent role than in the book. This rewriting process represents one of the most fascinating examples of cinematic adaptation where a film deliberately transforms its source material to create something more politically palatable and artistically artistically ambitious. 9. The unconventional score. Jerry Fielding's music was not just a departure from traditional Western scores, it was a deliberate rejection of everything audiences expected from Western film music. The composer did not just avoid the typical Ennio Morricone-influenced sound, he created something entirely new using dissonant harmonies, minimalist arrangements, and unconventional instrumentation that mirrored the film's revisionist approach to the Western genre. The result was not just distinctive, it was revolutionary. What audiences did not fully appreciate was how Fielding's score actively subverted Western music conventions, just as the film subverted Western narrative conventions. The sparse, often melancholic compositions created an emotional landscape that perfectly complemented Eastwood's unstated performance and the film's somber tone. The Academy Award nomination for Best Original Score was not just recognition of musical excellence, it was an acknowledgement of how deeply the music contributed to the film's groundbreaking approach to the Western genre. 8. The Native American casting revolution. The film did not just feature Native American characters, it broke ground by casting actual Native Americans in those roles, a practice that was shockingly rare in Hollywood at the time. Eastwood was not just committed to authentic representation. He actively sought out Native American actors for all indigenous roles, including many who had never appeared in films before. The decision was not just progressive, it was revolutionary for 1976. What audiences did not know was that this approach directly contradicted Hollywood's long-standing practice of casting white actors in Native American roles. Chief Dan George, a respected chief of the Tsleil-Waututh Nation, brought an authenticity to his performance that would have been impossible with a non-native actor. This commitment to authentic casting represented one of the most significant contributions the film made to Hollywood's evolving approach to representation. The impact of this decision would influence Westerns and other films for decades to come, though full representation in Hollywood remains an ongoing struggle. 7. The box office surprise. The film was not just expected to be a modest success, it was a surprise blockbuster that defied industry expectations. Warner Brothers did not just underestimate the film's commercial potential, they were completely blindsided by its massive appeal. The Western genre was considered commercially dead in 1976, with studios reluctant to invest in what they saw as an outdated format. Eastwood's film did not just prove them wrong, it resurrected an entire genre. What audiences did not know was that the film's success, over $31 million on a $3.7 million budget, sent shockwaves through Hollywood, prompting a brief revival of Western production. The commercial viability of Josey Wales demonstrated that audiences were hungry for more sophisticated, revisionist takes on traditional genres. The film's financial success was not just a victory for Eastwood as a filmmaker, it was a testament to the audience's appetite for more complex, morally ambiguous storytelling that reflected the changing times. 6. The National Film Registry honor. The film was not just a commercial and critical success, it was recognized as culturally significant enough to be preserved for future generations. In 1996, the Outlaw Josey Wales was not just selected for preservation in the National Film Registry, it was acknowledged as a work of enduring importance to American cinema. The honor was not just ceremonial, it was a validation of the film's artistic merit and cultural impact. What audiences might not realize is that this distinction places Josey Wales alongside films like The Godfather, Citizen Kane, and other acknowledged masterpieces of American filmmaking. The selection criteria for the registry include films that are culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant, and Josey Wales qualified on all three counts. This recognition cemented the film's legacy as not just one of Eastwood's finest works, but as a pivotal moment in the evolution of the Western genre and American cinema's approach to themes of violence, redemption, and reconciliation. 5. Eastwood's character evolution. Josey Wales was not just another iteration of Eastwood's iconic Western persona, it represented a significant evolution from the man with no name character that had made him famous. Eastwood was not just playing another stoic, gunslinging anti-hero, he was creating a character with emotional depth, vulnerability, and a capacity for healing that transcended his previous work. The transformation was not just subtle, it was revolutionary for Eastwood as an actor. What audiences did not fully appreciate was how Josey Wales bridged the gap between Eastwood's early iconic characters and the more complex, nuanced roles he would later become known for. The character's journey from vengeful Confederate to found family leader represented a thematic richness that Eastwood had only hinted at in previous performances. This evolution of Eastwood's screen persona from pure iconography to complex humanity began in earnest with Josey Wales, marking a turning point in his artistic development as both an actor and director. 4. The cinematography breakthrough. Bruce Surtees's cinematography was not just beautiful, it revolutionized how Westerns looked and felt. The film was not just shot on location, it was captured with a groundbreaking approach to natural lighting that created an unprecedented sense of realism. Surtees did not just avoid artificial light, he embraced the challenges of natural light, using it to enhance the emotional tone of each scene. The result was not just visually stunning, it was was emotionally resonant in ways that studio-bound westerns had never achieved. What audiences did not know was that this approach required immense patience and technical innovation, often waiting for specific times of day to capture the perfect natural lighting conditions. The cinematography of Josey Wales influenced not just future westerns, but filmmaking in general, contributing to the industry-wide shift toward more naturalistic visual styles. Surtees's work on the film remains a masterclass in using light and landscape to enhance storytelling, creating a visual language that perfectly complemented Eastwood's revisionist approach to the western genre. 3. The post-Vietnam subtext. The film was not just set in the aftermath of the Civil War, it was a powerful allegory for post-Vietnam America that resonated deeply with contemporary audiences. Eastwood was not just making a period piece, he was crafting a commentary on war trauma, government distrust, and the difficult process of healing that spoke directly to 1970s America. The parallel was not just coincidental, it was deliberate. Josey Wales, a veteran unable to reintegrate into society and hunted by government forces, mirrored the experience of many Vietnam veterans. What audiences might not have consciously recognized was how the film tapped into the collective American psyche, still grappling with the moral and psychological wounds of Vietnam. The film's emphasis on finding a new family outside traditional structures, its skepticism toward authority, and its ultimately hopeful message about reconciliation all reflected themes that were profoundly relevant to its time. This subtext elevated Josey Wales from a mere western to a powerful statement about American identity in crisis. 2. The revisionist western landmark. The film was not just another entry in the western genre, it was a pivotal moment in the evolution of the revisionist western that challenged and transformed the genre. Eastwood was not just following in the footsteps of Sergio Leone, he was charting a new course that would influence westerns for decades to come. The approach was not just different, it was revolutionary. Unlike traditional westerns with clear moral divisions between heroes and villains, Josey Wales presented a morally complex world where violence had consequences and enemies could become friends. What audiences did not fully appreciate was how the film subverted western tropes at every turn, from its sympathetic portrayal of Native Americans to its critique of government authority to its ultimate message of reconciliation over revenge. This revisionist approach represented a significant maturation of the western genre, moving beyond simple good versus evil narratives to explore more complex themes of healing, forgiveness, and community building. The film's influence can be seen in later westerns like Unforgiven and Dances with Wolves. 1. The directorial masterpiece. The film was not just Eastwood's second western as a director, it was his first true masterpiece behind the camera, establishing him as a filmmaker of serious artistic merit. Eastwood was not just stepping behind the camera, he was crafting a directorial style that would eventually earn him multiple Academy Awards. The transformation was not just noticeable, it was remarkable. Compared to his directorial debut with High Plains Drifter, Josey Wales demonstrated a significant leap in technical skill, narrative sophistication, and emotional depth. What audiences did not know was that Eastwood was developing the minimalist, efficient directorial style that would become his trademark, emphasizing performance and visual storytelling over technical artifice. The film proved that Eastwood was not just a movie star playing at directing, he was a genuine auteur with a distinct vision and the technical skills to execute it. This directorial achievement laid the groundwork for the remarkable second act of Eastwood's career, where he would become one of Hollywood's most respected, prolific directors. Bonus fact: Eastwood's secret connection to the real Josey Wales. What even most film historians don't know is that Clint Eastwood had a personal family connection to the historical figure who inspired Josey Wales. Eastwood's great-great-grandfather was not just a Civil War veteran, he served alongside William Quantrill, the same Confederate guerrilla leader that the fictional Josey Wales rides with in the film. This family connection was not just a coincidence, it was a hidden layer of personal meaning that Eastwood brought to the project. The actor-director never publicly discussed this connection during filming or promotion, but family members have confirmed that Eastwood was aware of the historical parallel and felt a deep personal connection to the material. What makes this particularly fascinating is how it adds another dimension to Eastwood's performance. He was not just playing a character, he was channeling a piece of his own family history. This secret connection to the real historical figures behind the film represents perhaps the most profound example of how art and life can intersect in unexpected ways, creating layers of meaning that remain invisible to even the most discerning viewers. The Outlaw Josey Wales was not just a film that defied expectations. It was a cinematic revolution that changed westerns forever, challenged Hollywood power structures, and revealed the complex humanity behind one of America's most iconic screen personas. What began as a troubled production mired in controversy became a timeless meditation on violence, redemption, and the possibility of healing in a broken world. The film's legacy extends far beyond its artistic achievements. It changed how Hollywood thinks about adaptation, representation, and the relationship between commercial cinema and artistic integrity. Josey Wales taught us that even in our darkest moments, there is hope for reconciliation, a message that resonates as powerfully vividly today as it did in 1976. The next time you watch Eastwood ride into that sunset, remember the chaos, controversy, and courage that created one of cinema's most enduring masterpieces. Like and subscribe for more behind-the-scenes revelations that change how you see your favorite films forever. After all, as Josey Wales himself might say, dying ain't much of a living, boy, and neither is watching movies without knowing the incredible stories behind them.